After my breakout tournament in Washington, in which I gained 44 FIDE ELO, I had my next challenge in front of me, the Montreal Open. A tournament packed with rivals of mine from the past, which is why I'm calling this tournament the Tournament of Revenge. In fact, 4 of my 7 opponents this tournament I actually had beef with and had to settle my revenge over the board with them. Before getting into the successful recap, I am happy to announce that I am launching my group lessons. Starting in January, I will be teaching 3 levels of classes once a week for 12 weeks. If this interests you, you can apply and reserve your spot with the link in the description down below. On to the video. Already in round 1, I was paired against a player whom I already had a huge quarrel with. In January of 2025, I started off the year with 3 classical games, and one of them was against my opponent, Alessio Di Matteo, who's a 1864 at the time, to whom I lost to badly, losing out on 14 points of FIDE ELO in the first month of the year. So I had a lot of revenge to take on this guy. When you're playing a much lower rated opponent, it's very important to get them out of their known book opening theory knowledge. And so after d4, I don't play my usual, which is d5. I play knight to f6. My opponent goes pawn to c4 and I go e6. Something that I've not played against Alessio. Last time we played, actually, I played d5, went straight into his prep and got crushed. So I learned from that. And since then, I haven't played my prep against lower rated opponents. And it's worked brilliantly for me. I haven't lost a game. So I played knight f6, c4, e6, and now after knight c3, I played the Nimzo Indian defense. Thought to be one, or if not the greatest opening for black in all of chess. It's super solid. It also has remarkable attacking traits to it with the right variations. So I played bishop e4. And so my opponent, which I saw plays queen c2 or e3 usually, here played a less played line nowadays. It's the classical a3. But this is less played nowadays, not for good reasons. Is because it allows black to take this knight and double these pawns. And once this happens, you want to put all your pawns on dark squares to play against this bishop. And also you want to keep these doubled pawns doubled and possibly isolated doubled if you can. So I played d6, immediately putting my pawns on dark squares against this bishop, e4. And now Alessio's off. He played this very fast. I was surprised. He's offering something very interesting. On knight takes, queen g4 attacks this pawn and knight. And after f5, queen takes, queen f6, which is forced, we would have to trade into this endgame, which I didn't know if I wanted this endgame. I was kind of 50-50. I liked what I had going for me so far. Oh, and by the way, for each recap today, I am allowing myself only 5 minutes to go through every game. Here we go. On e4, I play e5 to keep my pawns on dark squares and stop that pawn structure. And now my opponent defends this pawn with f3, which I didn't like because this knight is not looking great. And so I go with c5 here. And this is a moment that is critical. Here I am completely barring these pawns from ever moving again, and I'm asking this pawn a question with extra pressure, and I wanted my opponent to play a specific move here, and he did. He played pawn to d5, which is exactly what the black pieces want. You see, we have knights, and my opponent has the bishop pair, so I want to close the position so that knights are better and bishops are less good. On top of that, this bishop is really, really bad because it is inside the pawn structure, and so it won't have much mobility for the rest of the game, which is one of the perks of closing the position if you have knights. Moving on, a few moves later, I just construct on the king side, and here comes another critical moment, knight f5, to which I take, and here I was supposed to play knight f4, but I saw ghost after g3. I didn't like my knight here. I was supposed to play this for the advantage, but I played this, which was not as good, and now my opponent played a4, and here I came up with something very interesting. I wanted to play this idea. The king is pretty safe in this pawn structure because it's very hard to attack on the queen side here. And it's done so that you can bring your pieces easier over to the king side to attack. But I thought it over, And it was just fancy schmancy. I was streaming. I didn't want to put on a show, I wanted to play objective best moves. So I went with queen d7 attacking this. And after defending, I have castles long, which is just faster. And the king is just as safe. And so now my opponent is preparing against this h5 plan that I have coming. But the problem is after queen d2, really securing, like banning me from playing h5, I invoked the Shanklin rule by Sam Shanklin, international grandmaster, who's 2650 at the moment, has this rule: if your opponent prevents it, look and see if you can do it anyway. And so I played pawn to h5, sacrificing a pawn, but much more than that. I intend to sacrifice this whole knight if my opponent indulges. After bishop takes, it would be completely losing because I have pawn takes. And now if you take my knight, I have this discovered attack by this rook with check, forcing this king here. If the king goes here, I have rook g2 winning the queen here. So the king goes here, and now I had seen rook g2, threatening checkmate in one. And after queen takes, I have pawn takes with check, and then I can liberate my rook so that it's not on priest from this bishop, winning at once. So my opponent sees h5 on the board and is like, oh, I completely missed this. And he's visibly angry, and so he plays pawn to h3. Remember, I'm here for revenge, so I have extra motivation to win. So I takes, and I couldn't find a way to double my rooks in a way that keeps this king here without it going away and like king g2 this, or queen g2 defending. And so I kind of panicked and played this bad e4 move, which is still small advantage for me. The idea is that I keep a bishop here so that I can play rook h4, to attack this bishop and take on g4. Now, this rook h7 was a bit better because this can never be taken, because I have knight takes g4 takes and then f6, which is winning this pawn and winning a queen if the bishop takes. The bishop goes back, and now I have a question. Do I want to be worse, like just a full pawn down, or do I want to sacrifice and make it Armageddon? So I sack my knight for 2 pawns and a weak king, and this is what I tell myself. My opponent has a weak king, and I have 2 pawns for a piece. At least this is a draw, is what I say to myself. And so upon taking the second pawn, my opponent goes into very deep time trouble. He takes a long time to take here, and then I take back, and now he has 2 minutes on the clock versus 33 minutes. So practically this is a dream position for me, because at worst it's a draw, but most chances are that he's going to blunder with a lot of pressure on the clock here, and I'm going to win this. So he plays king e1, I go queen e5, I'm going to try to double here, and I want to keep this aisle open for my rook. So the king moves out, and now I play f5. I just had like a better move, rook e4 here, which I didn't see. I still don't understand fully. King c1, I'm trying to beat the clock here. I take king here, and now my opponent's position crumbles. You see, he has the bishop. 5 minutes is over. He has the bishop for these 2 pawns, but the bishop is completely lacking mobility, and so I have full compensation and much more for the piece down that I have. And so I just ended up converting with one blunder here, king c7, allowing queen b2, which equalizes because it's threatening rook e7, and I'm forcing to play b6 and queen b5. But with 1 minute on the clock, he blunders this, and now it allows rook d1. And here he sacrifices the bishop. Last attempt takes, and after check, I have to find king a5, and my king is completely safe here. My rook covering d8, and there is nothing that white can do. After rook here, I have rook d3, and I checkmate the king, although I thought here I take the pawn, I say checkmate, pause the clock, and my opponent's like, it's not checkmate, and then resigns anyways because it's mate the next move, which was completely crazy. So I feel like we're even now for these awkward end of games. On to game 2. I was paired against Grandmaster Bator Sambwev with the white pieces, and the preparation was a nightmare that day. I filmed some content with popular French chess content creator Julian Song all day, and when I got to the board, when I got to the tournament, I simply didn't have time to prep all day. So I came into this game with 0 preparation. It was a career decision, So we played a slow Italian, and then Bator plays this system, which was invented by Mihai Marin, Romanian grandmaster. And this is pretty good. I have a pretty bad score against this. But I know my theory till here, a4, bishop here, so you want to keep a square for your bishop, otherwise there's knight a5. My opponent actually did miss just knight a5 picking up the bishop pair. He thought on this, but he didn't want to go through this line. So he went g6, he stuck to his system, and then I played an early knight d5. I think the best is h3 here, which was bad by me. And this allows takes, and now black just has a free-flowing attack. I just allowed this easily. And so a few moves later, I played well here. This is all good. Taking was a slight inaccuracy. I have to play d4 here, which is not a great move optically. It just allows takes, bishop f5, e4, which I didn't like, and then black pierces through. But black pierces through anyways. Takes, knight takes. The knight is going to go here. It's a very scary position. I play this quite fast, and now e4 is on the board, and black just seems like they have everything going for him, like a free flow attack on my king that's pretty naked. And so I go queen c2, kind of pressuring this, c6 involving d5, and very important moment, only move to stay with a small plus for me is d5, very important. Although I'm sacrificing the beauty of my bishop's diagonal, I am preventing this pawn structure from being minted and goldened and playing against my bishop anyways. So, it's not really a sacrifice. c5 is played, and now I have this bishop c4. My bishop can come back into the game to defend. Bishop f5, and now I have a5. I'm planning a6. My opponent goes rook a8, and I go all the way back to f1, and we have equalized here. Although it's equal, practically this is very difficult to play against because black just has all the pieces converging towards my king. And so next for black is to play something like this, a rook lift to pressure the weakness on h2. So rook e5, and now I play queen d2, and now bishop d7, and he's eyeing this rook h5 here, so I have to kick his queen. But I play bishop e2, g3 was better with a significant advantage, but after rook ff5, doubling down on this pawn here, I have to play g3, kicking the queen. It's almost forced now, which is good because small edge for me here, says the engine. Although practically, once again, very hard to play. Now I play c4, solidifying my pawn here. Although this is all weak, the bishop seems so far now to get into these gaping light squares. And so the rook just goes back because I'm threatening some bishop g4. And so I play b4 here. So I know that this diagonal is opened, but here my opponent actually had not seen that he had fallen on the clock to 10 minutes. The clock was quite shaded in this area of the tournament, and so he literally picks up the clock. Illustration. My opponent literally picks up the clock, looks it up to the light, and sees that he has 10 minutes, puts it back down. Quite illegal, but, I let it pass. And basically just realizes now he has 10 minutes. He had not seen he had 10 minutes left. So he plays rook f5, attacking my rook. And now I'm completely winning if I blind myself from the tactic he's threatening. So obviously, if I go here, to me, this was quite obvious. I allow this tactic. Rook takes f2, bishop takes, rook takes f2, king takes an e3 check, queen takes, and now bishop d4. But quite evidently, this is completely winning for white because of bishop f3. And the two rooks plus the pawn will be more than enough to win this because of the weak king here. I'm out of breath. Long story short, I felt the need to sacrifice the exchange, so I played b takes c5, which equalizes, and after bishop takes, After bishop takes, I thought, why not take this pawn, because I'm going to take this next anyways, but this completely blunders the game because of queen f6, which I completely missed, and I was trying to push him on his time, and I did so in the wrong way where I just stopped calculating, and that's unlike me, and I got punished very severely for it. After rook takes, it's still equal, which hurts, because this I have full compensation, and I have a protected passed pawn as my pawn and exchange down material. So after queen f6, I played bishop g4, trapping the rook almost, but just bishop c3, and I resigned on the spot. Very terrible game, and the last bad game of this tournament. Phew, it's only round 2. With 1 out of 2 at this point in this tournament, I was paired against another player whom I had a huge bone to pick with. Amin Atmani, who in December stood me up in our game and made me 1 by forfeit, And essentially, it ruined my tournament because psychologically I was ruined. Mid-tournament, round 3, I'm paired against him. He made me wait 1 hour, did not withdraw the tournament. He just forfeited his game, and I was sat there waiting, walking around, and after 1 hour, he forfeits the game. Total waste of my time. Didn't apologize, didn't reach out. I was completely pissed. And so here we are, 8 months later, playing each other at the Montreal Open. Right from the get-go, Amin plays d4, d5. Yeah, so I played d5 now because the last game was on DGT and I didn't want him to prepare against that last game. I was streaming this whole tournament, so every game my opponents could see what I'd played earlier in the tournament. c4, e6, so I play my normal stuff, and now he plays a3, taking me completely off guard and activating the gun slinger. First to draw, last to blink. Be the first to throw your opponent off. Get them out of book fast to level the playing field. And so he takes me off guard, but this isn't really a good move. It's not principled. It's just taking up the b4 square and doesn't act in the center. It's not a knight c3, which usually involves some pressure in the center, or it's not knight f3, taking some key squares, e5 and d4. So I play knight f6, just normal move, and after knight c4, then I play takes. The idea is that on e4, I want to immediately pressure the center before he can take back his pawn, so that I would just take back my pawn, right? But then Amin plays bishop g5, which I didn't like at all, because he's not making a singular effort to take back this pawn, not even with queen a4, queen takes c4. So it just let me play c6, and now I can play b5 next turn and easily defend my pawn on c4. So e4, b5, and now I'm up a full pawn, right? h6, and this is looking like a Botvinnik system desperado. If you know, you know from this opening. It's a very precise desperado in which you're defending your pinned piece with this double attack on this bishop, h6, and then g5, covering the pin. And now when white takes, you take back, right? So takes. But there's a second weakness that Amin has, and I'm already a pawn up in this position. So he tries to defend this pawn, and this is a losing move because I can just pressure this knight. This wasn't the best refutation, but after knight c3, you can see why this pawn is so weak and is falling anyways. And now I'm suddenly like almost 2 pawns up against this 1871. 1871 is a very important number for me because when I came back to chess in August of 2023 and started my journey to a title with you guys, I was rated precisely 1871. So bishop e2, I go a6 here, defending this. I'm preparing bishop here, and this is just preparing against a4. I also have b4. So b3, I take, and now I go knight d7. I'm aiming to take this back. And on bishop f3, I played bishop b7 defending, and now a4, I go b4 attacking this knight, and now knight e4. So I'm outplaying and 2 pawns up from the opening. This rarely happens for me. I'm very happy with how this turned out. But, there's a big but. After I take here, I don't like my position. And in this position, I was supposed to play c5 and hold off taking this pawn because c5 opens up this bishop and it's practically just winning here. White has lesser things that make sense. So I take, and I take this second pawn here. Knight goes back and I go knight d5. So my knight is completely blocking this very nice Catalan-esque bishop here on f3. And he goes knight e2. He's aiming to castle short. And so where does my king castle? Not long, not short. So my king's going to stay in the center. And so that means that I can play this rook g8. So I played first a5, sinking in my protected past b pawn, which is very important. Castles, and now rook g8, putting my rook on this open, semi-open g file. Rook fe1, and now I go bishop e7. I don't know what to play because you'll see after knight c4, king f8, try to find a move for black. Like in this position, try to find a move for black. It's terrible. It's a terrible position. Even though we're up 2 pawns, the computer still thinks it's -3, but practically speaking, there's some value here in that it's really hard to untangle. I was looking at all kinds of stuff and even went down on time. I have 24 minutes here after 22 moves only, which is unlike me in these days. I manage my time better. But this is unlike me to have 24 minutes left. So, and my opponent now takes a long turn, tries to punish this. My idea is to go here and get my king safe, so there's no more problems with this rook, because I felt that all the problems culminated and were because of this rook on e1. So I go king f8, and my opponent takes a very long turn here. And he told me, because I was looking at these things too, that he was looking at knight c3, blocking this queen, to go queen takes, that's the alarm, to go queen takes f3. So he looked at that, but nothing like this works. And so he said, okay, why don't I just pressure this knight, blah, blah, blah. And so he played this very, very fast. And this is a move that on my turn I saw, if he plays this, I'm going to win. And I even told myself, watch him play this and blunder the game like that. That's what went through my head. And this cuts off the queen. So I went queen takes, and he was like flustered. And after knight here on his turn, he resigned. On my turn, he resigned and got me 2 out of 3. Because I was ranked pretty high in this tournament before the start of the tournament, I get to play more down than I get to play up before I get to play up a lot, if you get what I mean. So I was paired down for a third time in 4 rounds against a young player, 11 years old, named Damien Lamontagne, who played in the Invitational Quebec Championship not long ago and faced IMs, GMs, you have it. So this may be a little bit frustrated because I wanted to play that tournament. I wanted to be invited to the regional invitational, but I wasn't. And so this is my game against Damien. So I saw that in that invitational tournament, he played the Taimanov, which he doesn't usually play. And so I prepared something that would take him completely off guard, and I activated the flexible octopus.
Tentacles weave, theory snaps. Combat your opponent's mainline opening with a flexible sideline to steer away from the bulk of your opponent's knowledge.
With the move bishop f4, which he is not used to because it's an extremely rare move and variation against the Taimanov, yet extremely sneaky. A move like queen f6 to try to punish gets beaten up very quickly with bishop e3, and suddenly it's plus 0.6. Same for queen b6, you have some knight b5 here, and it's plus 2 completely winning. So black has to be careful and has to find the defense that is unlike any Taimanov, because usually in the Taimanov you go queen c7. And so now black has to find this, which I was very surprised. Damien found it over the board after like 8 minutes of thought. This guy has potential. So I take, because he's threatening e5 stuff. So I take, and I play c4. I was still in prep. c4 is to prevent this knight e7, because then you would take. So you're preventing knight e7, knight g6, I believe. So e5 is played, which is not the best. Usually black strives for c5 in this structure. So e5. But I looked at it and I was like, I'm not comfortable with bishop e3 because knight is going to scale down and then just tempo my bishop. So I went back to d2, prophylactic, knight f6, and now I develop. And so this is a Maroczy bind. So white has a lot of space and controls firmly d5. If black gets d5 in, they have a good chance at equalizing, or even better for them, like gaining an advantage. So I had to prevent d5 on my own for sure, but I also have this plan of scaling f4 in the future. So I bring my pieces in, develop, I get this solid b3 here. I'm always playing against this bishop because my pawns are on light squares. So it's important that I solidly, take grasp of my pawns. So rook d8, and I go king h1, preparing f4 without these queen b6 threats. So also why I played b3, there was some queen b6 check winning the pawn on b2 stuff. So bishop d7, which was the first odd move. I was like, why is he playing this? It blocks everything. The bishop sits better maybe on e6. And so now after f4, I realized what his plan was, and it was a huge positional blunder. Pawn to c5. So it's a good learning moment for the kid, because you never want to give this square as the black pieces against a Maroczy bind. This is the bread and butter of this position. And I had a tough choice to face here. Do I want to unconventionally punish with knight d5 and concealing this weakness on d6, which is a super weak pawn usually you want on an open file? Or do I do the conventional thing and take and play bishop g5 to take off the defender of the d5 square to own the d5 square for my knight? Well, I didn't go with that because that nearly equalizes actually, and I went with knight d5, which is much, much better, +2 advantage. The idea is that I'm forking these two pieces and forcing the knight to take mine to now open up the diagonal on this pawn, and black only has one reasonable defense in my opinion. If you go h6, this little timid move loses the game right on the spot. Check. If the king goes to h8, I can take with the discovered attack on this pawn, winning a pawn. So if the king goes here, which to me was the only choice not losing material, now I can take axing my rook here, and on takes I have this beautiful queen g6, threatening checkmate, and on f6 to defend, bishop takes h6, sacrificing the bishop. And black is completely done for. I have checkmate coming here, and you can't defend g7. So my opponent had to play the only move g6 here, in my opinion. And now you don't want to open up the file because it's not enough. You want to keep this all binded up, and you want to keep this king completely naked, and that's the move f5 here. So I'm threatening f6. I'm also threatening to take and open up the f file. The black pieces are in complete positional shambles. My opponent plays king g7, which gave me quite a hard time because everything I looked at, bishop h6, queen c1, f6, rook f3, whatever, bishop e4, takes, nothing seemed to work directly, which is kind of like my worst fear, like having a good position, a winning position, but nothing concretely works, because I'm a concrete player, right? So I play bishop c1 after a very long think. This is my first long think of the game, and mind you, I have like almost 3 times his time. He's in time trouble already. So he plays rook h8, the best move, very, very nice move. He's clearing the way for his king eventually, and also might solidly defend with bishop e8. So I play queen f2, I'm threatening f6, so I want to induce f6 to now put pressure on g6, and now my opponent plays the move that I wanted him to play, that I was kind of inducing him to play, pawn to g5.
He went g5. It's happening. Are you guys seeing this?
And if you are so built, try to pause the video and solve for the white pieces, white to play and win. And I played this immediately with a grandmaster looking at us, which is funny because I got to see his reaction after I played this move. Bishop takes g5, sacrificing a bishop, and after f takes, I have pawn to f6, forking these two pieces. Bishop takes, rook takes bishop, sacrificing the rook, forcing the king up. And why have I sacrificed a full rook in this position? Because now I have rook f1 check, the king goes down, queen takes, king here, king's in complete shambles, the rooks are disconnected, this rook is completely undefended, and I missed the clearly winning move, queen f6 here, preventing the king from going here and attacking the rook, and forcing the rook here, and then after this, I believe takes, bishop here, and then rook f6 is winning. This transposes to the game, but there's an easier way. Bishop takes h7 is like resignation automatically. Black can't do anything here. But in the game, I went check here, and then queen g7, which is what I had seen, trapping the rook and winning back the rook with interest. I have 2 pawns for free. I have 2 pawns up. But I missed king d8, and this lets the king take refuge, and I was kind of scared here because it allows black some counterplay. Specifically after rook f8, the king goes out, and I had bishop g6 here pressuring here, but now I forgot about queen g5. I kind of missed this move that threatens my bishop and threatens mate, but thank God that I have check, defending this once more, and now making a square for my king here. Black cannot take this bishop in other senses because of this queen g7 move with check that happened, which made this king get away from the defense of this rook, basically. And so rook b7, another move I missed, but thank God I have queen f6 that defends everything, and I can recoup the bishop back here. And so I just trade queens here into a rook endgame that is quite winning, and I decide to just trade these 2 pawns for these 2 pawns, which is really nice, with this nice pattern rook e7, and now d7, and now c6, rook takes. And here I will eventually just trade here. I cut the king until the king forces me to take here. And the final little cherry on the icing is rook f4, cutting this king here, making this endgame completely clear. If you let the king here, it's still entirely winning for white, but there are some stalemate ideas that you have to be ready for. But with rook f4 here, it's completely over. And a few moves later, my opponent resigned. On to round 5. I have 3 out of 4 here. I am almost leading the tournament. I think I have the 2nd best score of the tournament at this point in the tournament. Another rival, Henri Zhu, longtime rival. The last and first time we ever played was in 2012, and he absolutely demolished me with the black pieces. So I was assuring myself that I was not going down unless I had a big fight here. He is now an FM who's 2200. We played when we were kids in 1200 each, but now he's like 2200 and I'm 2000, and it's a big rivalry. So I decided to activate the lines then, and I went directly into his prep. So e5, he went f6 here, and now I went for bishop e5 check. You want to trade off this bishop because these pawns are on light squares. So that's the thematics. Bishop d7, and actually I was supposed to play knight c3 here, but instead I took queen takes and I played castles, so I get quick development. And the basis of all this here is, after knight c6, rook e1 takes, that I have to take with the pawn and keep as many pieces on the board and stop my opponent from castling. But I had seen that with taking with the knight, it leads me to get this f3 square that is cleared to prevent castling in the future on the f file. So that's why I took with the knight, which was less good. So I played bishop g5, cutting this king here, and after h6, inducing h6 was nice. I liked it. I played bishop back to d2. Bishop e3 was a little bit better. But this is soft now, which is great. Knight e7, and now I can prevent castling with queen f3, following through with my plan. So rook f8, no castle short anytime soon, but he told me that he was happy with this. He was fine with this because he can even go king f7, king g8 in the future. So I was like, wow, very shocked, because this is a mistake, says the engine. So queen d3, just eyeing this so that my opponent can't target this pawn very fast. Otherwise g6 would drop. So g5. And so I go bishop e4. And so now the next moves, I'm just trying to defend, hold on to this e5 pawn, even though the engine says to equalize, you have to let go of it for play, which is not practically the best to me. So my opponent plays bishop f8 after a very long turn, and something about this opponent that must be said. Henri has really bad time management. He might watch this video. It's just true. Every game in his tournament, he's down on time. So after takes, those times were not good, by the way. They were not the right times. But after takes, I have knight d2 and queen g7. And now he takes like all of his time for queen g7. He has like now 10 minutes. He had like 30 minutes before. And so I go knight f3, and I have 44 minutes against 23 minutes. These are the right times. He goes king g8, again, like a big turn, and it's like not even that much of a critical position. It's like quite an obvious move. And here I go h3 because, I want to prevent these g4 things. My opponent goes rook f8, and now b4. So for the next three moves, we keep missing takes, knight d4. I had seen everything, but I had seen it only equalizes for black, or black gains a pawn. Which is something I was really ready to give because it's an ugly position here. The tables turn really sour because I didn't exact my preparation. So a6, a4. I'm just trying to get this b5 in, and this becomes whatever. Like I play fast to kind of pressure him on the clock, and he has 9 minutes, so he has to play fast. And so now I find this knight h2, which he got scared of. He didn't want to take here, which seems to be a free pawn because I have knight g4 attacking the rook here, and then I have check. But beyond this, I didn't see what I had. This is +1. Oh! So I do have some forks. Okay, what if rook f5, checking here? And now this is equal, rook ac1. And I have some counterplay for kind of the pawn that I gave. So it was actually a good bluff. So my opponent plays h5 here, preventing knight g4, and now I can kind of give this pawn while playing queen d3 and attacking this a6 pawn. So pound of flesh for a pound of flesh. Now my opponent refuses this pawn a second time and goes a5. So now this gives me the time to go queen a6 and attack this really nice pawn, the crux of the black pawn structure, queen g6 to defend, and now I go with rook e2. Not evidently enough, f3 was the best move to defend here. I didn't like weakening all my dark squares. I didn't think that was a practical decision. So rook e2, timer's up. So rook e2, knight f5, and I muster up this, my opponent is down to a minute for the next 5 moves of the game, g3, and now I see that my opponent might have blundered, so I take, and now takes, and sure enough, he blundered this e6 pawn, queen takes e6, but after rook f7, I realized that I have no play to prevent this mate in 2, and to prevent this rook f2 idea, so I play the only move that equalizes in this position, and after takes, rook g7 check, rook g2, I offer a draw, and Henri accepts it, and that is a big result for me because I just drew an FM who's about 150 points over me. And so the final morning, the last double round of the tournament, by now I am completely exhausted. I played the Blitz tournament that Saturday night, and now into this morning, I play Pavel. So yesterday I played like something around 9 hours of chess, plus the streaming of the tournament was crazy. Pavel has almost no information about him, but coincidentally enough, this is why you train, everyone. I had been reading this book, the Artur Yusupov book, and it's a training and improvement book, but on chapter 4, the weirdest thing in a improvement and training book, he goes like tactics, right? He goes how to attack, and then he goes this, and then he has a chapter on this. I'm not sure if you can read it. Opening repertoire against 1c4, which I had coincidentally read right before this tournament. And let me tell you, my opponent played c4, which was surprising. I was not prepared. So I anticipated with e6, and I played the Artur Yusupov recommendation against c4. And I didn't even know it's pretty much a recommendation against the Catalan, which is pretty much this, just with the 1c4 move order. I didn't know you could play the Catalan with the 1c4 move order. Why would you play that over the 1d4? If anybody knows, tell me in the comments. So I play the Artur Yusupov, and he says in the book that this scores very well for black, and you can see why. And this is the first time that I learned an opening in the past like 2 years where I like understand everything, because he praises understanding. He tells you what equalizes, what makes it good for black, why does it score well for black, the tips and tricks. And he doesn't tell you, okay, it's just this move, which is most courses these days just tell you which move to play, right? Did I put the timer on? So I play bishop b7, and the idea to equalize in this opening is just to play c5. If you can manage to play c5 in this opening and unleash this bishop and, equalize with this bishop, you're fine. So my opponent plays bishop g2, very normal, and now knight d7 to prevent some knight e5 stuff. Knight e5 would put a lot of pressure on c6, very understandable. My opponent, though, plays knight e5 anyways. And here's where I play some game sense for you guys. If you guys are tournament players, here's some game sense. When your opponent is inching out and out of book, and you're still in book and you're comfortable with your position, go off of your chair and walk around. Now, keep an eye on your board in case your opponent plays, but this puts less pressure on your opponent, so they take more time. In other words, it puts more pressure on your opponent, so they feel like more at peace, and they can take more time on the position, and that's how you run them down on the clock. So knight e5, I take, play knight d5, go off my seat. a3, and now I play c5, which, as we know, c5 equalizes well. It's a good way to equalize for black, and I take some space. I get off my seat, and his time inches away. So 11, queen c7, now he's at 102. So just in 13 moves, I wiped off a third of his time. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on 128, and this is the method. This is the nice practical method here. And I go knight b6. I'm a bit better in the position, and I'm up on the clock. The clock is a piece. Now my opponent plays this really aggressive f4 to keep this pawn centered, but this is an overpush. Like, white's king is very weak because of this, and this is not great. The way to punish this is actually c4, and then bishop e3, bishop c5, trade the bishops, and castle long, says the engine, for a -1 advantage, which is insane. I guess the rook gets to d3, and it's very nice for black, which is noted for next time. So bishop e7, my opponent plays knight c3, attacking this, and I go c4. So bishop e3, preventing the queen c5 check, and now I go a6. And now my pawn is taking up some nice squares here. So queen c2, queen f2, attacking my knight, knight d7, and now f5, which is a huge enigma. What would you do in this position? A lot of pressure on your pieces. And so I played knight takes, pawn takes, and here I have to takes forego castles, and it's minus 1.8. But this is hard to do because after takes, you have to be okay with bishop h3, and then queen c6 and defending this, and then rook ad1. And it looks like you can't castle and white has everything, but in fact, black is completely winning -2. And yeah. But here I decided to play castles, not retaining the pawn, not being greedy, giving back the pawn. And after knight d5 takes, and now queen e2 because this was attacking the queen. And now I take once, and I play rook e8 after a very, very long turn, and then we equalize on time. Whew! And here, my opponent has a choice to make. Is he going to take? Or is he going to solve? Okay, he's going to take. So I play bishop c5. I want to trade these bishops. He moves his king very fast. Best move. Very nice. So I take, and now I play queen d6. And I'm expecting a really hard and arduous end of middle game, because after bishop h3, he defends this, and it's very hard for me to win back this pawn. But I do have a 3-on-2 majority, so I probably prepare and create a pass pawn. And so that's how the game would go. But my opponent told me after the game he missed bishop h3, and he thought he was just losing this pawn. And so he played queen a7, giving me a full pawn. And suddenly I'm better. So my opponent plays rook e1, and now I play queen d6. And I really want to show you this, queen b7. And now I play this double trick, queen d2. Don't look at the sign. So this, at first I thought I blundered, because it's playing a trap. Time's up. Give me like 2 minutes. It's playing a trap here. After rook takes queen b8, right? But I was planning on just checkmating in 2 moves. But then I thought, oh no, I'm giving bishop d5 check. And after king here, the king has a liberation and it's not mate. So then still rook takes, and then it's checkmate, right? Rook takes, and I don't have checkmate by myself. But then I saw queen c1, forcing the king here, and then queen takes b2, and I can take back the rook with the queen and win. So it's 2 times a trap, but my opponent has 2 ways to blunder here. My opponent takes a long turn and plays rook f1, and I was like, ah! Whereas when I thought I blundered like 2 minutes ago, if I had seen rook f1, I would have been celebrating. So I just went back. And he played rook e1 back. He's trying for a draw. Obviously, he's down a pawn. So I go rook d8, and here I blunder with rook f8. Oh, no! I missed queen d5, and now trade, and now I'm in a zugzwang. I have to untangle this g6, giving this square. I have to, otherwise I'm going to lose. Rook f6, I have to give a pawn, and now we trade minor pieces, which is a good practical and objective decision by my opponent. If he wants a draw, a rook endgame is always a draw, as the saying goes. All rook endgames draw. So after rook h3, I take back this bishop, and here we untangle here. And on my turn, after rook c6, I offer a draw, simply because it's such a draw. Like rook b4 defending the pawn, and rook c7 forcing... No, this is winning? No. Oh, shit. I could have played for a win. Oh my god, thank god I discovered this after the tournament and not before last round. Oh my god, that's winning. So I offered a draw on my turn and he accepted it. Oh my god, rook b4. Okay, but rook b4, he would have probably played this and just easily drawn. Wow. Next! And for the final game and my final revenge of this tournament, I'm playing against Migo Tanguy, who absolutely... Well, he didn't destroy me. He beat me with like a very boring maneuver with the white pieces in the 4th round of a very good tournament I was having in Three Rivers, which I vlogged for an hour. If you remember that video, you do. It was in March of this year. And he had beaten me, and it completely tanked my tournament. I lost the 2nd game that day, and here I am for revenge for the final round of the Montreal Open against an IM. So we get through the opening. It's an extremely boring opening. It's the system opening, and I go c3. It's kind of like what I played against Bator earlier the tournament. So I played an IM, a GM, and an FM this tournament. Very beautiful. I love that. It's a lot of titles. It's a layout of titles. And so I drew the FM. I lost against the GM. What am I going to do against the IM? My opponent plays this knight d7, which is his first mistake. I have to learn to punish this. So I punish with a5, which is the best move, and after a6, I have to play d4 here, because that's the concession of moving your knight off of f6, removing the pressure of e4. But for some reason, I got this into my head, and I played just rook e1, which was bad. I had to go d5, take the center, take the space. Rook e8, b4, and now we get through this extremely boring middle game. Okay, this is a very important moment. Knight e3 equalizes. The only way to retain the advantage, slight advantage for me, is to trade everything and go into this endgame where I have a slightly better structure after c4. But okay, I go knight e3 and I take back with the knight, and now knight g6, and my opponent just has like some nice breakthroughs and everything, really. So I go g3, which is a typical Italian motif. You go g3, king g2, and everything is solid, and you're playing against a knight on g6. d5, I go back with my knight on e3, knight f6, and I go knight f5. Queen d7, and I go queen c2. I have to defend this twice because he was threatening to sack his knight and win a pawn by taking back the knight here. So I have to laser defend with my queen, and now rook a d8. And here I really don't like my position. He's going to take queen d3, invade. So I have to defend this knight so that he invades and only attacks one pawn when he does. And now he plays queen e6, which I didn't like because he's taking off his nice pressure on the d file, which completely goes against like my lack of coordination and development here. So I go bishop e3. It's kind of an equal position here, right? It's very dry though. But in a few moves, it won't be dry. And I go bishop e6, bishop d8, bishop c5, back to f3, and now I play this very, very nice d4. So something to know about my opponent, he has a very mundane, sorry if you're watching me go, he has a very mundane playing style, and someone who will not be named, someone very influential at the tournament, told me personally after the tournament he hates playing against Migo because his style is so positionally dull and boring to play against, which is something good if you're a chess player that people are bored against you and they just blunder and they want to give the game away to you. But I'm an explosive player. I'm an active player. I'm a tactical, aggressive, passionate player. So I'll play a move like d4 to make things interesting. And this equalizes, which is all you need because practically this is the best decision you can make against this type of chess player. So I played d4, and I'd seen against takes that after f5 to gain some ground with e4 that I have this. Rook takes e5, sacrificing in exchange for a pawn, and my minor pieces suddenly look like monsters. And this is completely objectively fine. It's an equal position, which is great. It means I have full compensation for the sacrifice material. My opponent goes rook 7 d8, and I puncture in my knight here with this f4, and after knight f6, I already smell this knight coming to the outpost square on e4. So what do? Rook e1, knight e4, and you guessed it, rook takes e4. Sacrificing a second exchange. Don't look at that question mark. Practically against this type of player, that's exactly what you want to do. He fears these active positions and these completely imbalanced positions. In the game I lost to him, I didn't go active and imbalanced, and I paid for it heavily because he just Karpovianed me into like a small net until I was captured. So I sacrificed 2 exchanges now for 2 pawns. And let me tell you that my 2 minor pieces are absolutely brilliantly placed. I could lose this pawn, and this bishop is preventing any breakthrough in the future and preventing this rook from being good. So why is this only -1, even though it's like -10 for the 2 rooks? For -6, it should be -4, is because I have 3 points of compensation for these 2 rooks. In that I do have 2 pawns, true. But I also have 1 other pawn in compensation for how well placed my minor pieces are. And so these rooks just aren't as good as they should or could be because of the blocked files, meaning that they're not worth their full 10 points. Timer over. And so my opponent plays queen a2, king f3, but this is completely crazy. And now I try to trade queens. My opponent refuses, and I go king g4, which is a mistake because I'm allowing rook takes, and then queen takes, sacrificing the queen for this endgame. My opponent looked through this endgame for 10 minutes and finally said he didn't like it. It was too close to a draw. So he picked queen a1. He actually touched his queen, was going to play queen f2, but saw that I have some d5 stuff attacking the queen, and then took a long turn with his queen had touched. And so he played queen a1, and now I just shuffled my pieces around, kind of mimicking a draw, and now I have queen f5. And this is apparently winning. My opponent played queen d5. He's in time trouble now because he didn't sacrifice back the exchange. And now I found queen f7 check, king h8 with the mistake, and now bishop f8 threatening mate. And I had to be careful for this. Rook e7, bishop takes, and rook takes e5, winning back the piece. But now I have check, which was very important, and then I would win. So he doesn't have any counterplay. I realized that I played bishop f8. He has to sack back, and now I have a draw. By perpetual, I can force a draw in this position. But do I really want that? Is it worth it in this position here? And let me tell you something that is very crazy. I took the draw because earlier in this game, let's go back to move 24. I will tell you about something that happened for the first time in my life that never happened before. On move 24, and I have the proof here, right here. I remember this. Do you see move 24, bishop takes e7 that I had to write down? The bishop takes e7 is way off of the bottom row. And that's because I was hallucinating. I was actually that tired during this tournament, and this is why I am announcing at the end of this video that I'm taking a small break. I optically hallucinated. My vision was blurred because I was having small hallucinations of triangles. I could not see the board very well. From bishop takes e7 all the way to here. The game got a little bit more crazy, so I had to my brain gave me another hour to lock in. Thank you, brain, for that. But yeah, I was hallucinating. It was very scary, and I had never hallucinated optically before during a chess tournament ever. And safe to say that although it adds to my decision to take a draw here because I could go further. He was also emotionally charged here, and after queen d3, I can play for wins if I want to. Objectively, it's closer to equal, but it's small edge for me. But practically, he's kind of emotionally charged, and I have two pawns and a really nice knight. I could play for a win here, but I was hallucinating, and this I thought before the last two rounds, because it was two double rounds on both rounds of the weekend. I thought before the second set of double rounds after the Blitz tournament, I was like, I'm done. I'm done for a while. And so I finish off this tournament with plus 23. My new rating is 2,091 at the end of the month of September. And I'm not going to be playing a tournament for at least a month, so October 10th or more, to rest, to eat, and to get my brain back together, because I don't want that ever to happen and affect my results over the board. And on a very serious note, thank you so much for watching this very long video. I hope you enjoyed the recaps. I made them smaller per se for each, just really cramming down to your brain my knowledge on the most essential parts of each game, less going into specific lines and analysis. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and that's the Montreal Open. I ended up with 4.5 out of 7, which is a really good score, and I drew a FM, an IM, I lost to a GM, plus 23, 2195 performance, and I won the under 2100 section rating section prize, which is 3 months of Chess Mood, which is great. And I'm very proud of myself, but I need to give my brain some rest. I just need to. And so I'm taking a little break, not from content creation, you'll see videos, but from classical chess. I'm taking a nice break to get back and get right at it. This is only the beginning of a very nice journey that now, in 2 consecutive months, I've gained a lot of rating, over 20 points. And I think we're batting at plus 70, plus 68, ELO in 2 months, which is incredible. So we're keeping at this pace. Thank you so much for being a patron of this channel. It's a long thank you, I know, but I'm very grateful to you guys, especially after what happened on Sunday. It was very scary, and I didn't like the feeling, and I don't want that to happen ever again. So see you next time. And yo, huge tournament. That was a great one. At home, streaming, and we pulled through with a plus. I'm so enthusiastic. Have a wonderful day.